Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salamu ala Muhammad wa ahla baytihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. So we ended talking about Dhul Kifl in the book God's Emissaries. And now we are moving on to the next prophet. In English, his name is Samuel. In Arabic, it's Ushmu'il. So he says, after Musa, the Bani Israel became steeped in sin and corruption. They rebelled against Allah's law and adulterated his religion, despite the presence of prophets among them who strove to admonish them and lead them. This was the case all of the time. In the presence of prophets, they would always rebel, as we saw, against Musa and against all of the prophets. They were always causing problems and always trying to change the religion, go back to idol worship and these sort of things, despite seeing clear miracles. So in response, Allah allowed the Egyptians, under the command of Goliath, that's the English name, but in Arabic, his name is Jalut. So under the command of Goliath, to decimate them. They massacred their men and boys, enslaved their women, looted their wealth, and drove them from house and home. They destroyed their houses of worship and stole the Ark of the Covenant. This was because of what their hands had set forth, as we said in Quran. The actions they have taken have the consequences to them, and they are facing a lot of problems from, the oppressors and tyrants, and this is also true from in the case of the Muslims. Once the Muslims leave the path of Prophet and Ahlul Bayt alayhimu salam and abandon that way, they face all sort of trials and tribulations for not following the way and the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. And this is why we are facing so many problems in this day and age, because the Muslims have gone so far away from the path of Ahlul Bayt alayhimu salam and have followed other ways and other things and gotten so far off the path. Now we are in the state, that most of the Middle Eastern countries, they are either doing lots of haram, or the Muslims have lost the honor that they once had. If we want this honor to come back, then we need to follow the way of the Prophet, because this is the honorable way, is to follow the way of the Prophet, to follow the way of Ahlul Bayt alayhimu salam, and this is the way that we will achieve Allah's pleasure. And this is also the way that we will be worthy servants, inshallah, to serve in the under our Imam Mahdi Ajallah Ta'ala Farajul Sharif. So these people were destroying Bani Israel, and he says this unassuming wooden box, the Ark of Covenant, measured only 2 by 3 cubits. It was the very box that Jibreel had given the mother of Musa, so she could stow the baby when Musa was a baby and cast him into the rivers when the Fir'aun's authorities came after him. So many years later, as Musa lay on his deathbed, he placed the wooden tablets, which the Torah was inscribed, his armor, his staff, some of his garments, some manna, and his sandals, Harun's turban, and other relics in it, and he entrusted it to his successor, Yusha ben Nun. From that time forward, the ark became a sign of the rightful Jewish prophet from Bani Israel. Allah only allowed those whom he had chosen to possess it. It became a source of blessing and tranquility for Bani Israel. They would carry it into battle and derive strength from that. So we know that these relics are with the Imam of our time now, and it was passed from Imam to Imam. There's an interesting tradition I'd like to relay here, that there were Zaydis who claimed that Abdullah ibn al-Hasan had the sword of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, he is reported to have said that they are liars. May Allah curse them. He said, by Allah, Abdullah ibn al-Hasan has never seen it, either with both his eyes or even with one of them. Oh Allah, not even his father has seen it unless he saw it with Ali ibn al-Hussein alayhi salam. If they are truthful, ask them what is the sign in the hilt and what is the mark on the blade. I have the sword of Rasulullah. I have the standard of Rasulullah, and his breastplate, his armor, and his helmet. If they are truthful, ask them, what is the mark on the breastplate of the Rasulullah? Indeed, the victorious standard of Rasulullah is with me, as are the tablets and the staff of Musa. I have the ring of Suleiman, and the tray on which Musa used to offer sacrifice. I have the knowledge of the greatest name of Allah, which when Rasulullah used to put it between the Muslims and the polytheists, no arrow from the polytheists could reach the Muslims. I have the same as what the angels brought. We have the weapons in the same way that the Bani Israel had the Ark of the Covenant. Prophecy was brought to any house in which the Ark of the Covenant was present. The imamate will be brought to whichever of us receives the weapons. My father, Imam Bakr alayhi salam, dressed in the armor of Rasulullah, and it made marks on the ground. I put it on, and it was like it was for my father, the one destined to rise up, the Qa'im, Imam Mahdi, Ajallah Ta'ala Farajuhu Sharif, from among us will fill it so that it fits him exactly when he puts it on, if Allah wills. This is in Kitab al-Arshad of Sheikh al-Mufid. So we see that all of these relics of the prophets have been passed down all the way down until our imams, and they are all, each imam of the time, they are in possession of these relics as well as other things. He says, now that the ark was gone, the chaos in the ranks of the Jews was crippling. Prophet Samuel had grown very old and could no longer provide the leadership they needed to combat the Egyptians and free themselves of their hold. It was time for Allah to make Samuel's successor known. The Bani Israel leaders came to him and said, appoint for us a king that we may fight in the way of Allah. Besides the fact that appointing a successor was not in the hands of Samuel, Samuel did not believe that they had the commitment to even go fight. Like they really actually didn't even want to go to battle. They didn't have the willpower to do that. So he said, you have no sense of loyalty to Allah's cause or a desire to fight in his way. Perhaps you will not fight if fighting is prescribed for you. She said, even if fighting is made wajib on you, we know what type of people you are. We have dealt with you for a long time. You probably will not even fight, even if Allah tells you you have to go fight. So they asked, why would we not fight in the way of Allah when we have been expelled from our homes and separated from our children? If Allah prescribes fighting for us, we will obey our Lord and fight our enemies. But we have seen their treachery in the past, and most likely they will not want to go fight. Samuel then received his orders from Allah and conveyed to them that Allah has appointed Saul as your king. Saul in Arabic, his name's Talut. So Allah appointed him as their king. So those same leaders who just a minute ago they claimed that they would bow down to the will of Allah, now they're making a big deal about the one Allah has chosen. How can he rule over us when we're more worthy of ruling than he? And he has not been given any wealth as we have. The precedent until that time had been that all prophets were from that tribe of Levi, and all the kings were from the tribe of Yusuf. Allah had favored these two tribes for these honors, and according to the Jews' wrong ideas, wrong beliefs, Once Allah gives such a favor, he cannot take that favor back. They say the hands of Allah are tied. Na'udhu billah. Saul was from the tribe of Benjamin, or Benjamin, the brother of Yusuf. So in their eyes, he didn't deserve to be appointed to that position, and Allah could not possibly transfer the favor from them and their tribe to give it to the other tribe. We see also in history that people had a problem with the divine appointment of Imam Ali alayhi salam, but the appointment is divine, and man has no say in this matter. It's left with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So many times people think that they are better than others because of their lineage and other things, as we see here in the case, that they thought they were better than Saul, and that Allah shouldn't have appointed Saul. And how can we say have any opinion with what Allah appoints? You know, if Allah appoints, who are we to say anything? We cannot say anything about it. This is a divine appointment. How can we challenge the authority of Allah, and how will we have the audacity to do such a thing? And we have to remember that the best of us is the one who is the most pious. So sometimes people think they are better because of their lineage. Someone may come and, let's say, for example, there is a Sayyid, but the Sayyid is committing all sort of type of sins and all sort of haram. And then you have another person who is a non-Sayyid, and they are pious and doing what they are, commanded to do by Allah. But and then someone appoints the non-Sayyid to the position, and the Sayyid gets upset and says, I am better than him because my lineage goes back to Rasulullah and all of these things. But at the same time, he is not following in the footsteps of Rasulullah, unfortunately. But they think they are better because of their lineage. And this is what is happening in this case here, that these people think they are better than Saul, and that Saul cannot be appointed to this because they are from this particular tribe. And we have to know that the one who is the best in the sight of Allah is the one who is the most pious. And we have to believe that Allah truly knows best where to place his guidance and who to appoint as his hujjah, or his proof on the earth. When we have to, it comes down to having submission, having taslim. We have to have absolute submission and obedience to Allah. And we have to have absolute obedience to the one who Allah has appointed, which would be the Prophet. The Prophet says something, then we need to abide by that. And if Allah tells the Prophet to appoint Imam, then we must follow that Imam, and not be like the person who in Ghadr Khum, where after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Man kuntu mawla fahada aliyan mawla," that whoever master I am, then this Ali is his master. One of the people said, "Is this from you or from Allah?" And he said, "If it is from Allah, then may Allah rain stones down on me and kill me." And the stone came and hit him in the top of his head, and it came out from below him. So we see that the person was so stubborn that even if it came from Allah, he would rather be destroyed than to accept the command of Allah. And this is what is going on, something similar here. They did not want to accept Saul. They would rather, they say that we are better for this position, and that they did not want to accept what their prophet gave them. And when we start rejecting what our prophet has commanded us to do, and then we will find ourselves in a world of trouble, and could push ourselves outside of the religion by rejecting the words of our prophet. So Samuel replied, he said, Allah himself has chosen him over you and enhanced him vastly in his physique and knowledge. By this, he wished to refute their claims to superiority, for Allah does whatever he wants. If he had deemed their tribes worthy of favor in the past, he was not compelled to continue his favor in the present when there was someone more worthy of it than them. Just because Allah has favored them all of these years does not mean that he has to continue favoring them, especially when they are arrogant, disobedient, and challenging Allah's decisions. And we see that the prophethood was in the line of Bani Israel for a long time. But what has Bani Israel done? They are always rebelling against their prophet and so on and so forth. We see prophethood was transferred, and we see that the prophethood left from them, and it is in the lineage of Ismail for the last prophet, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is one of the things they did not want to accept the prophet either, because they wanted the prophethood to remain in the tribe of Bani Israel. But Allah tested them and removed it from them and put it in the line of Ismail alayhi salam. So he says, as Saul was indeed worthy of Allah's favor, for he possessed the two critical virtues of a successful military leader, knowledge and physical might. Physically, Saul was the heftiest of the Bani Israel and brave and strong. That he was also poor or from a less prominent tribe, it didn't matter, because he had the other merits that he needed to be a ruler and a king and to lead them in the battle. Samuel continued, Allah gives dominion, which is his to give to whoever he wills. Allah is vastly generous. The Bani Israel leaders were not convinced. They didn't believe their prophet. They were challenging their prophet. And it reminds me of others who challenged the prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his day and time. For example, in the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, the one of the prominent companions that other groups of Islam revere, and he said, I never doubted in the prophethood, in your prophethood, as much as I have done today, when he made the treaty with the pagans. He said that he never doubted as much as he did this day. So we see that he has doubted before, and he is doubting in that day. And we see that these people also are doing the same. They are doubting the prophet of their time, Prophet Samuel, Ushmu'il. So Samuel told them, proof of his dominion is that the Ark of the Covenant shall come to you. In its arrival, you will find comfort bestowed upon you by your Lord, and in it are what remains of the artifacts left by the family of Musa alayhi salam and the family of Harun alayhi salam. Angels will bear it, and all this there is proof for you if you are going to believe. With the miraculous return of their long-lost ark, no grounds remain for them to deny that Saul was indeed their rightful king. So now they had a proof, and they need to accept that proof. So Saul, he tests his troops, Talut. So Saul set off with his troops, and soon thereafter told them, Allah will test you by means of a river. Whoever drinks freely from it shall no longer be part of my army. And whoever tastes only a handful, they just scoop a handful of it, will remain in my army. He needed faithful troops, not just a lot of numbers, to stand up to Jalut or Goliath's forces. So it's not about the quantity, it's about the quality. You can have, look at now in the time of Imam Mahdi, Ajallah Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif, he need 313. How many Shia do we have? Thousands and thousands and million, we have a lot of them, but quality is what is important here. To be considered as a true servant of the Imam, we need quality, not quantity. So he said, when they reached the river, his troops drank from it freely, except a few of them, and he dismissed those who drank from it freely and sent them home. He and with him those of strong faith who remained. They crossed the river and soon reached the field where the enemy forces were. Those who had tasted but a handful, on seeing the army before them, they got discouraged. They lost their resolve. They said, we do not have the strength on this day to fight Goliath and his troops. And these ones Saul dismissed too. Only those who had exercised enough self-control and restraint to refrain from even taking a handful of water, who knew they would meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They said, how many of times a small group of people have vanquished a big company by the will of Allah. And Allah is with those who are patient. In the one tradition mentions that the final count of soldiers that was with Talut in this event was 313 soldiers. And we see the same in the Battle of Badr with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and inshallah we will see, and inshallah will be part of those 313 soldiers of Imam Mahdi alayhi salam. The next day, he said, when they faced Goliath and his troops at the commencement of the battle, they prayed, Lord, bestow on us the capacity to persevere, make our feet firm, and aid us against these disbelieving people. This is Quran, Surah Baqarah, ayah 250. So this is also a good dua that from Quran. Quran is full of beautiful duas that we can use in our daily kunut or after salat. This is one of them. So he says they fought strongly, they remained firm, and then Dawud or David, he killed Jalut or Goliath. And without the leader, his troops couldn't, remain fighting. They lost their resolve, and those enemy troops, they ran away. And in the end, bi'idhnillah, by the will of Allah, Talut and his troops, they overcame their enemy and fought against them, and they were successful by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is about Nabi Ushmu'il or Samuel. So now we move on to the next prophet, is Prophet Dawud alayhi salam, or David in English. So when Dawud was born, first we want to point out there's something in the footnote about the name Dawud. He said in one narration, it says that the meaning of his name was derived from the phrase, meaning that he cured his own wounds with love, his love of Allah. Dawa Bewud. So from this name came Dawud, is from one of the narrations. It said Dawud alayhi salam was born, he had already been circumcised. This is one of the signs of prophets, that they were born circumcised. It says, indicating that he had been chosen for Allah's special service. When he was a young man, he fought in King Talut or Saul's army along with his brother and his father. Despite his youth, he was mighty and fierce. It was him who dealt Goliath the final blow and ended the occupation of Quds or Jerusalem. He eventually became king of Bani Israel, and he was chosen by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be his prophet. Allah revealed the book to Dawud, we know as Zabur, or the Psalms, on the 28th of month of Ramadan. There is a narration where all the books of prophets, they came down in the month of Ramadan. For example, the Torah, the Zabur, the Injil, the Quran, all of these books came down in the month of Ramadan. It came down all together as a complete book, mentioned in narrations. The Psalms contained epic stories, praise of Allah, and supplications, but not any sharia or ahkam, no laws. Since the law of Dawud, they were still bound by the law of Nabi Musa alayhi salam, by the Torah. So Dawud used to recite the Psalms, it says, in a voice so enchanting that the mountains and birds exalted Allah alongside him the morning and the evening. He had a beautiful voice, and he was known for his voice of dua. We see here that he would recite dua and we have to practice ourselves reciting dua. We have so many beautiful dua, and we have something is termed as like Zabur of Ali Muhammad alayhi salam, which is the Sahifa Sajadiyah, these beautiful dua that we have from Imam Sajjad alayhi salam, Imam Zain al-Abidin. So we should take the time, read it, study it. Many scholars, when I would ask advice, they would always tell me to study this Sahifa Sajadiyah, take time and delve into it and extract lessons from this. The Imam used to teach people because he was oppressed. He used to teach people through dua. He would embed his teachings in the dua. And there's so many lessons that we can take from this. And we should also try to beautify our voices and recite in a nice way as much as we can. I myself don't have a great recitation voice, but I still make effort and try. So even myself, if I can try, then everybody else, they can also try. And we should ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us a nice voice to recite dua. It says in the Psalms or Zabur, it was written, the righteous shall inherit the earth. And we believe that this will take place with the zuhur, or the reappearance of our awaited Imam, Imam Mahdi Ajallah Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif. This is a promise that was given. It is also mentioned in Quran, and this promise will be fulfilled in the time of the Imam and the reappearance of the Imam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the ability to be able to witness this and be part of this, inshallah. He said, for this gift of revelation and divine knowledge, Dawud thanked Allah, saying, praise is for Allah who favored me more than he did many of his other believing servants. Allah favored Dawud because Dawud used to spend a lot of time in prayer. He would make his prayer and spend a lot of time and concentration on his prayer and his dua, and he used to fast. We have is known as the fast of Dawud, where he would fast every other day. So this became known as the fast of Dawud. So he used to, even though he was a king, most kings are not very religious people, but and he was also a warrior, but most warriors are not known as being very religious people. We have seen all of these combined in the personality of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, where every aspect he was the top in that. He was a ruler, he was also spiritual, he was also a fierce warrior, he was everything that you could think of, in these categories. He was the pinnacle of that. And we see that Dawud also was a king, a warrior, a very good in spirituality and dua and prayer and fasting and other things. Once when Dawud had finished reciting the Zabur, Allah wanted to show him a lesson and that he could derive benefit from. In a very beautiful story, Allah sent a small frog to remind him and to remain humble. Despite the beautiful voice that Dawud had, that he would remain humble. And the frog asked Dawud, he said, Dawud, are you pleased with your worship today? So he replied that he was. So the frog continued, do not be too pleased, for each night I and my kind exalt Allah 1,000 times, and each exaltation is followed by 3 phrases. We do this from our watery abode. So then when we hear the screech of a bird flying overhead, we perceive the hunger in his voice, and we jump and we splay ourselves in full view of the bird so that they may eat us. He hoped to show Dawud how his exaltations of Allah were fewer in number than theirs. So do not think that whatever worship you are doing is the best worship in your town or your city or your state or your country, and that we are the best of the worshipers, when there is always something else that is worshiping Allah more than us. We should be humble. And the frog says, we are worshiping Allah much more, and to show him a lesson about this, and that they are willingly ready to sacrifice themselves in Allah's way. So the frog said that he jumps and willingly gives his life so that the hungry bird can eat him. So he hoped to show Dawud how his exaltations of Allah were fewer in number than theirs, and required no great sacrifice the way that theirs did. So no matter how much we feel we have done to worship Allah, it will never amount to the praise that Allah deserves. We should never feel content in our actions and feel that they are sufficient. When we do this, this is dangerous. We should always feel the urge to better ourselves by striving hard in the way of Allah, making each day better than the previous day. Imam Ali alayhi salam, and we'll end with this, while describing the pious. It's mentioned in Safat al-Shia by Sheikh al-Saduq, a sermon by Imam Ali alayhi salam. I extracted a small part from it. It's a beautiful sermon, and he says, the pious ones, they are not satisfied with their meager good acts and do not regard their major acts as great. They always blame themselves and are afraid of their deeds. When any one of them is spoken of highly, he says, I know myself better than others do, and my Lord knows me better than I know. O Allah, do not blame me for what they say, and make me better than what they think of me, and forgive me of those shortcomings which they don't know about. You are surely the knower of things unseen and the coverer of the defects. Subhanallah. This is how the pious should be. And we should take this lesson that this frog has taught Nabi Dawud alayhi salam, and let ourselves be humble, and let ourselves to not think that whatever we are doing is sufficient, and that we are the best in whatever we are doing. We are the top of the scholars, or we are the top of the reciters, or we are the top of our masjid, or we are the best in our community, or we are the best in this and that. We should always feel humble and think that our acts are small, and our big, even our big acts, think that they are small, and take this advice of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam to heart, and try to follow that, so we can follow in the footsteps of the Imam, and inshallah we can be considered one of the pious ones. So we have run out of time, and inshallah we'll continue the next week. And Allah has many other lessons for Nabi Dawud alayhi salam. The next one is speaking about a caterpillar. So we'll find out what's going on with that next week, inshallah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
اللهم صل على
اللهم
محمد
صل
وآل
على
محمد.
محمد وآل محمد.